How the heck are you, everybody? I am Fastidious, and I've got really crazy, really cool news. We've had 3 new heroes added into the gallery on test server. This video is on just one of them, and he is brand spanking new. We have essentially heard nothing about this guy yet. His name is either Glacius or Glacius. I think I want to say Glacius, like glacier. I think that's the idea, because he is a Northerner, and on top of that, at long last, we have gotten another Northerner Mage. So here he is over here. This is his artwork. I'm holding off on clicking on him for a second because of this. When we click on him, we get a kind of Unity error. That's like the 3D modeling a lot of video games use. So this is so brand spanking new, fresh off the press. They haven't even loaded his model in yet. That being said, however, the kit looks totally complete. You can see all the skills are there. We have got awakenings. We've even got a little bit of lore. Very cool stuff. We're going to do a full breakdown of Winter's Reaper, Glacius, our brand spanking new Northerner Mage. Let's get into it, guys.
Fastidious.
Fastidious.
Alrighty guys, so I'm going to put his card artwork right above my head so we actually have something to look at as I break him down. Without further ado, let's kick it off with those base stats. So, pretty typical HP at 10.8 for a Legendary Mage. Attack's pretty good, it's nothing crazy, 4683. The reason I find it exciting is, as you're going to see in his kit, he's very much a crowd control hero. He's got a lot of slow, a lot of freeze. That does lead to some damage escalation for him, but when I saw all of the crowd control that he puts out really consistently, I was thinking, is he going to get like the Mari Aeon treatment where he gets dirt stats, you know, attack in the basement? Clearly, that is not the case. 4683. Comet comes in at like 4655 or something. So this is like spot on. Everything else looking very standard. 19 cost. So again, that is the same cost, your typical cost for a single target or burst damage mage that is a legendary. So you can see with this kind of, even at max level, that's what his range looks like. However, he can expand it. So 19 cost, pretty cool here. Everything else, really by the book. 2.6 attack interval and 14 rage and auto, so the high end of normal. Very cool thing they just started adding. This was in a Forerunner update, which I think I'll probably still break down on the channel, a whole video dedicated to that. But they are now telling us the rage regen basic attack and the rage regen attacked. So this is how much rage baseline, not counting rage regen percentage, that will allow this to scale more. This is telling us how much rage a hero will gain when they do a basic attack or when they are attacked. That is huge because there's just less obscurity in the game. For someone like me, that's very exciting. Let's get into the talent. Basic attacks inflict slow upon hit. You can see it is a 50% slow, lasting for 2 seconds, so not as potent as some other heroes with 75% slows, but 2 seconds is pretty good, with a 20% chance additionally to make that a freeze. So instead of just a 2-second slow, you can get a 2-second freeze. They're completely motionless, they're frozen solid. Excellent. And then both these things synergize really well with the next sentence in the talent. Deals 20% increased damage to targets inflicted with slow and 20% increased damage to targets inflicted with freeze. So he's hitting the targets. He's going to put on one of those 2 different crowd control effects with his basic attack, the slow or the freeze, and that immediately leads to a damage escalation, like a damage increase, because he's getting 20% more if they are slowed or frozen. Perfect. Let's look at that basic attack. Completely and utterly standard. Single target, 100% magic damage. Goes up to 120% with skill ups. Now for the ultimate, Arctic Fury. We actually do have an animation here so you can see what he looks like. I think he's going to be like an ice elemental. The way we've got Vortex, who's like this kind of water elemental being, he's this like glowing, spiraling, snowy ice elemental. Thank goodness gracious they have put him in the North Throne as a Northerner unit. You know, you have a similar thing, not an elemental, but an ice creature, Ice King in Boreas. He's an esotericist, no dual faction in Northerner. For them to swing and miss again and have not put him in Northerner would be disturbing. At least they got this one right, especially with a move called Arctic Fury. So this is going to be a manual ultimate. With skill ups, it's going to be 900 costs. You get 600 initial costs. It's going to last 15 seconds, but again, with skill ups, that can be a pretty solid 20 seconds. It's going to increase his ult attack range. This is another cool thing they're doing. Every single skill is going to show the range of that skill, so he fills out the rest of that rectangle, making it a 3x4, so this is the same range as someone like Virna. right? That's pretty cool stuff. Also, it's going to turn his basic attacks into 3 consecutive strikes, so into a triple hitter. Each one of those is going to be worth 90% damage. However, with skill ups, again, you can get that to 110%. So if you're hitting the same target, let's just say, just to make it easy, that's 330% damage, 110% per hit times 3. Excellent. And it's going to be randomly to enemies in range. For every 1% max HP of the shield strength that he is wearing, so however much his shield that he is putting on himself, and you'll see he puts shields on himself, and obviously as a Northerner, he'll synergize very well with those Northerner lords that put out shields. For every amount of shield, the HP worth of shield that is on him, however, that proportionally equates to his total HP. For every 1%, he's going to have a 1% increase in damage. So let's say you build him, let's make it simple. Let's say you build him with 25,000 HP. If he's also wearing a shield that is 25,000 HP, he's going to get a full 100% damage boost during the ultimate. That's really significant because those triple hitters are now going to be 220% per hit with skill ups, 660 if you're hitting the same target with all 3 hits. That is a lot because these will register as basic attacks. So they will scale directly with his attack interval, which you can easily get down to like 1.5 or something, right? You could, and with good gear, you can have like 1.3. You could have this guy absolutely flying, putting out a ton of attacks. And because these are also going to be considered all 3 hits individual basic attacks, all of those will have the guarantee to put on slow. On top of that, the 20% chance, if you're lucky, that they will be freezes. But because he's going to be spamming out all the attacks, you are going to freeze a lot of enemies. Let's look at the animation really quickly, and you can see, no, he just destroyed the guy. Any of them getting frozen? Yeah, double freeze. Beautiful. All right, let's go to the first passive now, Frozen Shield. So I told you guys, Glacius would not just have to rely on other heroes and Northerner lords to give him shields. He actually can give shields to himself. So with the Frozen Shield passive, he gains a shield equal to 20% of max HP. With skill ups, that can go up to 30% of the max HP, and it's going to last 10 seconds. So if you build just a decent amount of HP on him, you could get some really nice shields. Then each time he takes damage, it's going to reduce the cooldown by 1 second. So typically, this is going to be every 30 seconds, but if he takes damage, you can reduce that cooldown all the way down to 12 seconds. So if he takes 18 instances of damage, you can bring that down to the minimum 12 seconds, and he can be cycling these shields every 12 seconds. Remember, they last for 10 seconds, so that's like a 5/6 uptime. It's going to be up all the time. That's fantastic. Additionally, when the ultimate is activated, the effect triggers immediately and increases the shield strength obtained to 40%, but with skill ups, it can go all the way up to 60% during the ultimate. So the base with skill ups on the normal trigger can be 30%, but then the insta trigger you get during the ultimate, it can go all the way up from 40% to actually 60%. That is super powerful. Keep in mind that's going to be a 60% damage increase during the ultimate. That's a pure minimum. If you also have like Gwendolyn or Vortex, or you've got some giant shields coming from somewhere else, it can be a lot higher, all the way up to a 100% damage boost. Finally, Heart of Ice. This is what really caught my eye. This hero possesses freeze immunity. Freeze immunity was unheard of in this game. Then came Ymmerit. He gives freeze immunity to himself and can give it to other heroes in range. We're thinking, is there more content coming with freeze where like the enemy is freezing you and you are going to have to cleanse it off or bring an out and out freeze immunity? I'm thinking yes. I mean, look over here at this, guys. We've got another hero very soon after Ymmerit's release that is coming very soon now, I'd presume, who also brings freeze immunity. So I think this is something we are going to have to keep an eye on. You can see deals 60% extra damage to enemies inflicted with freeze. So you are going to want him to put out freezes a lot. I think to do that, you're going to want to build him pretty fast. So he's got a lot of chances, a lot of basic attacks that can potentially trigger that 20% chance. Remember, during the ultimate, he'll freeze a lot because he's doing triple hitters. But that 60% increased damage is really good. And it can actually go all the way up to 80% with skill ups. Now here is a very interesting thing. If the target is immune to freeze, so if it's something like, let's say, Gear Aid 4 or Gear Aid 5, those later gear dungeon stages where there is crowd control immunity, particularly to freeze, if it is one of those enemies, one of those enemy targets that is immune to freeze, well, he's going to play something called Eye of Winter, which doesn't do any crowd control. But basically, Glacius is saying, well, to me, in my opinion, in the way I see it, in my narrative, this enemy is frozen. Even though they're not, he's using his Eye of Winter. He's seeing them as frozen. You can see a base duration. He's going to think that for 3 seconds. With skill ups, it can last 5 seconds. Why is that significant? Well, because you can get all the big damage bonuses that you get from the rest of his kit. So even if they're immune to freeze, he'll place this Eye of Winter mark on them. To him, it's the same thing as if they're frozen. So from this passive, you'll get that 60% extra damage up to 80% with skill ups, and you'll also get the 20% from the talent. That's really cool because it makes him a viable, ideally, we'll have to test him out when he arrives, that should make him a viable DPS and content, even where you cannot crowd control the enemy, you cannot freeze the enemy. All in all, he seems really good. Let's just get this out of the way. Another Northerner Mage is absolutely colossal for many people's faction trial. There's a condition to beat stage 12 of Northerner's faction trial. There's a condition you need 3 mages. Let's count them. Without counting Glacius, who's about to arrive, it's Nocturne, Shamir, and Mari. That is it. Could you have Iax who can be any faction? Sure. Do most people? No. So you could be like me, where I was waiting for Shamir for literally 10 months before I finally gotten him, and then instantly was able to clear it. A lot of people now will have a 4th option. Reading the kit, I don't envision he's going to be a rare bucket hero. We'll have to see. But yeah, I think this is kind of huge. Just having that 4th option, granted it is a legendary hero, but it's going to be more likely just inherently because there's a bigger pool now. There's 4 mages, not 3. It's pretty nice, right? You don't have to just, obviously we all get Mari on day 3, but now we've all been sitting around trying to snipe Nocturne and Shamir. Now you have a 3rd option and you only need 2 of them. So that's really, really cool. So let's get into the awakenings now. Glacius has good awakenings. I've only read the A1. I figured I'd leave 2, 3, 4, 5 for a blind live impression in this video. This A1 though, I really like it. When there are only 1 target, I don't know why it says targets, when there's only 1 target in range, it's going to increase his damage by 15% with an extra 15% damage dealt to targets inflicted with freeze. Keep in mind, you cannot place freeze on bosses and some elites, right? It's not going to be possible. However, Glacius is going to say, to me, you're frozen, because that is considered an immunity. He'll place the Eye of Winter on them, and you'll still get that big, big boost. So in general, if there's only 1 target, so now you're thinking boss content or like big elite content where there's just 1 guy in range, he's going to have a 15% boost, and then he's almost always going to get that additional 15% boost as long as he tries to inflict a freeze on them at some point every 5 seconds with skill ups. So that's a 30% increase on damage. Period, as long as there's 1 enemy in range. It's not going to be for everything, but you could see, could he be like single target viable for something like Gear Raid 5, Gear Dungeon 2, right? You need that single target magic damage dealer. It's really hard. A lot of people need like Hex and Nocturne. You know, Micah can kind of work. Soul Cadence is amazing, but you're pretty limited. Here's another option, I think. On top of that, he's got the expanded range too, so you can put him a little further back, like in that Hex spot for Gear Raid 5, Gear Dungeon 2, you know, because he gets that full kind of single target marksman range because it fills out during the ultimate. To me, that's huge. I think that's really cool. The A2, yeah, could have guessed that, plus 300 attack, totally typical. The A3 increases the shield strength gained by 20%. This is really interesting. This isn't saying when he places a shield upon himself. This is just in general. I think all shields that are placed upon him are going to be 20% stronger. So that means they're going to push you 20% closer. And as we know from what happens during his ultimate, that is going to lead to increased damage as well. So this one is, again, kind of huge. It's going to make him tankier and lead to more damage. Moreover, when he is shielded, increases damage dealt by 15%. This is just stacking another damage boost on top of everything he's doing. You can see you could really scale up the damage with this guy. Then A4, totally typical, plus 8% crit. The A5, this is what I'm most curious about. Upon receiving fatal damage for the first time, triggers Ice Barrier for 10 seconds, during which the hero cannot act or take damage. When it expires, the hero restores 30% of his HP and 100% rage, and gains a 50% shield for 10 seconds. I really like that. So he gets like a little second wind. Ideally, in a lot of content, you don't want your guys dying, but this could be, again, really huge for like Gear Dungeon 2, Gear Raid 5, whatever you like to call it. I'm always going to say both because I know they've become interchangeable at this point. Sometimes you might get picked off by like the Volkas, right? Maybe a Volca clone explodes at the last second, or most likely with the big splash AoE damage as it ramps up throughout the fight as you pick people up and people die. You could easily see your Mage, your DPS character dying. This is going to give him that second life. Is it going to be enough, that 10 seconds? I don't know. Like, you might run out of the time and then the clone explodes and you don't get to kill it. But potentially, it could be game-changing. All in all, for an A5, I'm not blown away, but it is pretty cool. Like, think again, if you're just trying to progress through Gear Raid 1, You know, sometimes those guys, the Scourges that come out with the aura that can slowly chip away at you, maybe you don't have good enough healing to survive it. That's something I struggle with a lot on takeovers that don't have very good gear. He's going to get that second life. Maybe he picks off a few more people. Maybe that is the difference. The 50% shield as well for 10 seconds is a straight up 50% damage boost once he ults, and he is going to ult because after those 10 seconds, he gets 100% rage, so you'll instantly ult with him. I think it's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about this hero. I like the design. I like that he is this icy elemental. At least that's what it looks like to me. Glacius should be a lot of fun. Let me know what you think in the comments, guys. This one is fresh off the press. Just came to the test server like 24 hours ago. I think he should be a really fun hero. I think at the absolute bare minimum, he'll be very solid for helping people in Northerner faction trials. And at the max, I could see this being really legit crowd control and great damage. There's a lot of increased damage that happens in this kit from left, right, and center. Really cool stuff. I am hyped for the Winter's Reaper Glacius. I hope you guys are too. Again, let me know what you think in the comments. Like the video. Remember to subscribe. Share it with your mother. I've been Fastidious, and I'll see you real soon.
Fastidious.